I am 82 years old, young rather, and I'm in reasonable good health. My favorite dog as I was growing up was old Tucker. Tucker was a mixed breed, mostly wire-haired terrier, and he was the smartest dog in the world. The day he was actually, I went to town and I had a dime in my pocket. And there was a guy up there who said, hey, little boy, you want to buy this dog? And here's this old dog. And I thought, that's pretty cool. I said, what do you want for him? He said, how much you got? I said, well, I ain't got but a dime. He said, okay, it's yours. He took my dime. Her name was Trixie. I took that dog home, and Mom had a fit because she was pregnant. And I mean, she was about to produce puppies, you know. And well, Tucker was one of the dogs in the litter. We gave all the rest of them away. Grandma Hatfield got one, and it was called Joker. And but old Tucker stayed with us almost all his life. He was a real family-oriented dog, and he would join in with us in all of our game playing and what have you. He was just a dandy old dog. He was a good hunting dog, and hard-headed as. You know, he did what he wanted to do. He was his own dog. I got ready to go to town, and you know, when you're going to town, you're going to be doing things with some of your buddies and playing pool and what have you. You don't want a stupid dog with you, you know. And so I told him to stay at home. And he griped and grumbled. He always had his favorite phrase that he used. He'd say, clap him. If he didn't want to do something and you really got on to him, he'd sit there and he'd clap him, clap him, clap him, clap him. That's what he would say. So anyway, I told him to stay at home, and he went into the clapping mode, and I went on up the street. I'd look back every once in a while, and there was Tucker, ready to go. Just as soon as I got out of sight, he was going to head for town. And this went on, and and every once in a while I'd turn around, and he done started moving a little bit, and I'd say, "You stay there." He'd sit down and had a real disgusted look on his face. And I'd go on, and when I turned the corner and there was a house in between he and I, then I'd duck back real quick and look at him, and boy, here he was coming, and I'd yell at him, and he'd turn around and his tail would drop, and he'd drag himself all the way back to the house, and he'd sit down and he'd watch again. And then I'd take off running. Once I got out of sight, I'd run for 3 blocks as hard as I could go. And I'd be going along there after I was out of breath. I'd look about a block away, and he'd be peeking around a bush, you know, to see where I was headed. He'd always make it to town. And that followed through when we moved out in the country. And whenever we'd always go to a movie on a Friday night. He would jump up on the running board of this old car, and we would drive it up to a crossroad up there, and we'd tell him, okay, you got to get off now. He'd hop off of it, and we'd go, and we'd be gone for hours, you know, time you go buy some groceries and go to the movies and all. We'd come back home late at night, and we'd see these 2 bright eyes shining, waiting right there at that intersection. We'd pull up, and there was old Tucker, you know. He'd jump up on the running board, he'd run up the running board up on the hood, get up on top of the car, brace his feet, and he's ready to go. And he had all these little idiosyncrasies about him, you know. And we went to Colorado one time, moved out there, had an old farm trailer on behind a 1937 Hudson Terraplane. Tucker was along with us, of course, and he rode on top of the load with the rest, with Darlene and I. And we got out in the middle of Kansas someplace and stopped to go to the bathroom. And when we got in the car, we drove about 30 miles and realized we ain't got Tucker. And Dad says, I think we ought to just leave him. Well, that didn't sit well with nobody in the family. He turned around, we drove all the way back. Old Tucker was sitting over on the side of the road. He spotted that car coming. He just got up and wandered out there to the road. We pulled up, he jumped up in it, and away we went again. But his whole life was like that. He got in trouble one time. This guy said that came to our house and he was mad as an old wet hen. He said, that dog been killing my sheep. And we asked Tucker, and he denied it, of course, but he lied a lot. I'm not sure whether Tucker was ever really guilty of killing the sheep or not, but this guy was upset. So Dad, he came and told me, he said, we got to get rid of Tucker. And I said, no, I don't want to do that, you know. And I was about 10 years old or 11. And so we gave him to a guy that lived in Paris, a young guy. And so we didn't see old Tucker for, you know, as far as we knew, he was gone forever. And these people let us know to keep on the lookout because this kid had went to the service and Tucker had ran off, and they didn't know where he was at. So one day I was out in the yard there in the Falls, and here come Tucker. And that was, you know, after 2 or 3 years, he remembered how to get home. I believe he was 18 or 19 when he died. And see, once I went to the service, we severed relationships there, you know, for a long time. He picked right up with Don, and he was Don's buddy. He was everywhere Don went, there was Tucker, you know. And he was quite an old dog. I could tell you a million stories about Tucker. He was the closest and best friend I ever had. Whenever I die, I want to go where Tucker is.